How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I just want to talk about, obviously, I just want to talk about Ohio State and all that this year, of course, which you guys already know, I don't really like, talking about them on the channel that much. Um, because this is a Notre Dame channel, but I talk about other teams as well. So, um, at times. But anyways, I just want to talk about obviously Ohio State this year, um, and all this hype around them right now. Saying that they're going to win the national championship and all that now, like already. I mean, we were hearing that back in spring during spring, but anyways, um, so I'm just going to talk about them for just a little bit. Um, and I know I'm off topic a little bit. I know this is a Notre Dame channel, but I feel like I just want to talk about it and just you know I just want to talk about them for a little bit. Um, Even though I don't like talking about them that much on the channel, like I don't like talking about them because I don't like them. Absolutely hate them, as you guys know. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm gonna talk about them still. Um, and do I think that they should win the national championship? Yes. I do think that they should this year, with all the talent that they have. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to. That's the only thing. Now, I've been hearing a lot of Ohio State fans and all their delusion, towards Notre Dame fans lately, just because they beat us by 3 points. Like, okay. And they're all, being delusional, saying that, oh, this and that ball would have been intercepted. So there was this Ohio State fan during the blue and gold game, right? I think it was CJ Carr, that touchdown pass. Well, this Ohio State fan was all on there saying that, that ball would have been intercepted and all that. It's just like acting like they know everything, acting like they've been coaches, acting like that they know everything, you know. Um, that's my problem with them. All right. Number one, they always lie about things. Number two, they say that the media doesn't love them when that's absolutely not true. Because obviously the media and the committee has put them at number two, even after not making the playoffs last year. Uh, so I really don't understand why they're so delusional, why they act like that, why they say things like that. They just lie about everything, as I was just saying. Um, because that's not true at all. I always see the media overhyping them every year. Even if they miss the playoffs, they still end up in top five. They still end up, at number two. Um, which is I feel like is the media always overhypes them. You know, so that's an absolute lie that the media doesn't. Supposedly, the media doesn't love them, but yet the media is literally putting them in at number two every year. You know, that's or not the media, but the committee. And the media, all I hear is ESPN. ESPN gives them love like no one else. They love Ohio State, and the committee also. No matter if Ohio State has two, and no matter if they have miss the playoffs, they're always going to be number two somehow. And I don't quite understand it because a team that missed the playoffs, to me shouldn't be number two. They should be at most. They should be at least number seven, number eight, around there. And I just don't really understand. Like, I just don't get it. I mean, they get it. They're basing it off of who they bring back or who they bring in. Which, with like, how is it? They're basically guaranteeing that they're going to win a national championship this year, which they should. They should. Doesn't mean that they will, um, but yeah, they're just so overrated, so overhyped. As I was saying, their fans are just delusional. They want to talk about Notre Dame and all that. They want to be you know on Notre Dame channels, spamming us and all that, spamming the chat, whatever, right? Saying that we're irrelevant, whatever, that we play a weak schedule. Just because they beat us by 3 points. All because they just beat us by a field goal. You know what I mean? And they act like they beat us by multiple scores, which is absolutely just not true. They act like they beat us 62 to like 10 or something like that. But that's absolutely not true. I mean, these same fans that were saying they're going to win the national championship, these are the same fans that are saying, like, I don't understand I don't understand the logic with Ohio State fans. I just don't. I just don't understand. They only literally beat us by 3 points, and if we would have had good coaching in that game, we would have won that game, no doubt. I have no doubt that we would have won that game. And yeah, no, these Ohio State fans are just so this arrogant, delusional, whatever you want to say. They want to say that, oh, we beat you, 62 to nothing and all that. It was only by 3 points. Then they want to talk about cupcake schedules and this and that, saying that we play a cupcake schedule, but yet they play cupcakes every year. They literally schedule Akron every year, and that's not a cupcake. Like, Illinois is not a cupcake. Michigan State isn't a bad team supposedly. Indiana's not a bad team. Purdue. I mean, let's just be real. Like, those teams ain't good, and they would have sit there and talk about cupcake schedules. Acting like they don't play anybody all year. Like, but they would have sit there and talk about weak schedules and all that. Like, so I just don't really understand. They're just delusional, as I was saying. They lie about things. They lie about, when they say the media doesn't love them. That's just that's the biggest lie. The biggest lie that I've ever heard. Because all I see is, the committee always putting them at number 2 every year, even if they don't make the playoffs, which they are number 2. Right, like right now, Ohio State is at number 2. And I just don't really understand it. As I was saying, I don't really get it because they didn't make the playoffs. And now, on the other hand, what I find kind of like BS as well is that, Michigan, right? Michigan won the national championship, right? Well, shouldn't they be at like number 2 right now? Or at least number 2, number 1 still, especially after winning the national championship? I'm just being honest. Because after Georgia won a national championship, they stayed at number 2 and number 1, right? So, but yet you're going to put Ohio State up there, which doesn't make any sense, at number 2. And then if Notre Dame loses games, if Notre Dame loses like, a game or 2, they drop like 8 spots. It just makes no sense. So if you're not Alabama, if you're not Georgia, If you're not Ohio State, you're not gonna get loved by the committee. Like you lose one game, you're gonna drop like 3-4 spots, which is ridiculous. Um, so yeah, I don't really understand it necessarily, like because I'm just based on realism, right? I just try to tell the truth as much as possible. You know, I don't see that as being, I just think that it's stupid. It makes no sense. Ohio State didn't even make the playoffs last year. So I don't even know how. I don't even understand how they're number two, as I was just saying. I just don't get it. Then they want to act like they're the gods of football. Well, you haven't done anything. You haven't won. You haven't beat the SEC team since 2014. So you're 1-13 against the SEC right now. So I really just don't want to hear it, that you're the gods of football. You guys have not been able to beat an SEC team since 2014, as I was saying. Like, so that doesn't sound like gods of football to me when you lose to the SEC like that, and your record is 1-13. When you can't beat teams like Alabama, when you can't beat teams like Georgia, then you're just not. You're not a god, unless you do that every year, which they always act like they do. That's another lie too. They say that they're the gods and that they act like they beat Alabama. They act like they beat Georgia every year when they haven't done any of that. Like, and they're literally 1-13 against the SEC right now. And yeah, maybe they had the same amount of talent. Maybe they had the same amount of talent, but it doesn't necessarily mean, which they're capable of beating those teams, because obviously they get 5 stars easily because, again, they don't have academics. So obviously they can compete with them like every year because they don't have grades, as I was saying. So it's just like even then though, I mean, you still haven't been able to for whatever reason. So, I just don't really want to hear. I don't really want to hear it, honestly. Ohio State fans, they're just delusional, as I was saying. I don't understand. I don't even understand how they're number two, honestly. And everyone wants to keep on saying, well, you know what happened? In the Missouri game, there were some players that were out, with injury and this and that. That doesn't matter. That does not matter. Like, every team in America, every team, like, has injuries one way or another. Like, So I don't want to hear that excuse of why they lost to Missouri or why they lost, to Michigan. Like, I don't want to hear any excuse. Like, because in that Missouri game, they only lost. They only scored just a field goal in that game. So, like, I just don't really want to hear. I just don't want to hear that excuse. About injuries and all that, which that's what they always talk about. They always say, injuries was the reason why they didn't win the game, which that's a biggest excuse I've ever heard. So yeah, these Ohio State fans, I'm sorry. Ohio State, you should definitely win the national championship this year, but it doesn't mean that you will. Because Ryan Day is not a good coach. He's just not a good coach. I'm sorry, he's just not. And you can call me a hater, whatever, but he's just not a good coach. He's not Urban Meyer. So that's just my opinion on that. And until they show me and they prove to me that they're going to be national. If they show me, I just want I'll believe it when I see it. I've been hearing this for like the last 3 years, as I was saying, about how they're going to win the national championship. And I just want to believe. I want to see it to believe it first. I've been hearing all this talk, about how they're going to win a national championship. Prove it then. That's all I got to say. You haven't been able to do it. So, I mean, in my eyes, I think they're overrated right now. I mean, they're always overrated. I mean, the media always, again, when a team loses to a team that they shouldn't, when they lose to Missouri, when they lose to Michigan, which they would have lost to us too, if it wasn't for, coaching. But if they wouldn't have lost those games, what am I going to say? So what I'm saying is, I don't understand how they're a playoff team, how they are at number 2 when they literally missed the playoffs last year. Didn't even make it last year at all. It just absolutely makes no sense. And they're basing it off of what? They're basing it off of who they bring back. So that really doesn't make any sense to me. They're not basing it off of, they're basing it off of who they bring in, with what talent they bring in and all that, just because they're Ohio State. That's what they're basing it off of. They're not basing it off of resume or nothing, what happened last year, which is my biggest issue with it. So it is what it is. I mean, these Ohio State fans could sit there and say, well, they're number 1 and this and that. Based off of what? You didn't make the playoffs last year. Number 1. Number 2, you weren't even in the top 5. I think they were like maybe number 6, number 7. And yeah, they weren't even in the top 5 last year. So I just don't understand how they're number 2. All right, that's just my personal opinion. Then they want to talk about Notre Dame again, be on our ass all day in the comments and certain videos, certain channels, whatever. They want to sit there and argue with us and all that about making it look like they beat us by multiple scores. Whatever, but their head coach, I guess, is more worried about an 80-year-old man than football, I guess. So, I mean, that's the way it is. I guess he wants to go after 80-year-old man, Lou Holtz, that has won national championships. And you want to sit there telling me that doesn't really matter because he's, that was in the 80s. Well, it does matter because he actually won national championships and Ryan Day hasn't. So I really don't want to hear I don't want to hear that excuse. So in my eyes, Lou Holtz had a right to say whatever he wanted to say. He had every right. So, and you can't say that he was wrong about it. I mean, I think he was telling the truth the whole time, But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Is Ohio State overrated, or do you guys legitimately think that, you know, that they're going to make the playoffs and that they're going to make a run? And I know that um, this is a Notre Dame channel, of course, but I do talk about from time to time like other teams as well. Um, but what do you guys think? Do you guys think Ohio State's a playoff team this year? Do you guys think they're overrated? Like I think, because I think they're overrated right now until I see it first. Because we've heard this story many times. The last, as I was saying, 3 years. So I'm more about seeing it to believe it. So, anyways, guys, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button as always, and see you on the next one.